I'm out on my walk today, and I thought I'd just, put up the camera and share really kind of what I'm thinking about. And if you don't know me, I'm Scott. I've been a recruiter for 30 plus years, so I know a few things about jobs. But I was talking to somebody, and I won't tell you who they were or are. I was talking to somebody today, and they essentially said they hated going to work. They were miserable about their job. And it really got me thinking, which is sad. I mean, it's sad to hate your job, isn't it? But people today don't just hate their job, they're miserable in their job. And I've got my notes with me. There was a Gallup poll. I want to say close to 85% of people hated their job and felt miserable in their job. It's terrible. You spend 40 plus hours at work and then commuting. And a lot of people today have to commute because they want you back in the office. And we could talk about that in a whole nother video, but people spend 40 plus hours getting to, from, preparing for, preparing your lunches, whatever the heck you're doing, whatever your job is. But the majority of people in the US hate and despise their job. I just think it's sad. But let me share with you, the birdies are here. Let me share with you from a recruiting perspective, or from my perspective, why I think people are miserable in their jobs. And again, they're just not unhappy and don't like it, which is normal. It's always been that way. But they're literally miserable. That's a terrible way to live. But I was talking to this person this morning, and they were sharing with me how they just despise going to work. And today's a Monday morning, or it was a Monday morning when I spoke with them. And they totally despised going to work. Well, this is pretty cool. See if you can see it in the background. Totally despised going to work. Hated every minute of it. Like, just utter disgust about going to work. It reminded me of a story, and this is a little personal. But growing up, my father hated going to work on Monday. He hated it a tad bit less on Tuesday. He hated it a little bit less on Wednesday. Thursday, he probably had a 50% hatred for his job. And this was forever. This wasn't just random. It's just, for me, that's a sad way to live. I just think, we had to step on eggshells and be very cautious because my dad was in a foul mood. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday for sure. It was terrible. But people today, and I didn't think that was normal. I think today it's kind of normal. People hate their job, despise their job. But the person I was talking to just was disgusted about having to go to work. He didn't want to go to work. And I kind of asked him, well, why? He goes, well, he gets, on the weekend, he spends time with his kids. Okay, I get it. Spends time with his kids, and now he's got to go back to work, be away from them, deal with people he didn't want to deal with. I kind of told him, I said, the job affords you the opportunity to spend time with your kids. It affords you the opportunity to buy things for your kids. Like, it's, you're privileged to have a stable job, as stable as they get today. We could talk about that in another video. But I think you're kind of privileged to have a stable job that you can count on, that you get vacation time, Not everybody has that option or that luxury. A lot of unemployed people. And we could do that in another video. True employment rates and how that factors in on things. And I see this I see this really from a recruiting perspective on how people deal with unemployment. But he was very privileged to really have a job and employment and income and stability. There's a lot of instability today. But again, to walk around with hatred for your job I think it's kind of sad. But let me break this down on what I think are a couple truths on why people hate their job. And if I didn't mention it, I actually worked for a company. I spent most of my career working for myself. I'm going to pause here for a sec. But I have worked for companies. I've gone to work for companies before. And I've hated some of them. For me, and let me break down these truths overall, not just for me, but for me it was being micromanaged. I hated being micromanaged. And I think that's one of the number one things people hate. The lack of autonomy, the lack of, the ability to kind of, go at their own pace or not be micromanaged. And micromanagement is not really a management technique. It's a technique used by people that don't know how to manage people. And that's a whole nother video. I can go into that because I've worked with hundreds and thousands of managers throughout my career. And I've learned a lot of things. The truth is most leaders are managers and not leaders. And I can tell you why from my 30 years of being in the recruiting business, why this happens, what's happened. But so I want to say lack of autonomy. They don't like being micromanaged is kind of the number one. Lack of purpose. You're spending 40 hours a week. You're spending 40 hours a week on something you don't care about. You're not invested in. And the person I talked to today said they have a 2-hour meeting at work that he just despises. That's a whole nother topic. Why do you put people through a 2-hour meeting? I don't want to be put through a 2-hour anything. I don't care if it's a movie. And attention spans today are short. If you're still here, you're probably going to drop off. But I've got more info. I really do. And these will get smoother as I get more comfortable with this. I've got a lot of topics to cover, and I figured I need exercise. Let me help myself, and maybe I can help other people as I'm walking around. And right now I'm not walking, I'm resting. I get it. So micromanage, lack of purpose. You're spending 40 plus hours a week away from your family, and you just don't feel like there's a purpose for it. You're wasting your time, and most of the time it is. Like you're there to make the company money. That's the bottom line. You're there to generate revenue for the company. And that's a whole interview tactic I can show you. But the third thing that is kind of at the top of the list is toxic dynamics. Most of the workplace is politics. It's dynamics that, again, leaders don't know how to lead. They don't know how to manage. It's pretty disgusting. And other reasons are lack of engagement. They don't feel engaged at work. There's no, work life or work relationships that are balanced. Here's a statistic that I thought was a little surprising. Older workers seem to have higher satisfaction rate at work. Why is that? I don't know. For me, being older, maybe it's because I don't really care about the politics. I'm just there to make, I'm there for one reason, really, for the bottom line. I don't care what you call me, what title you give me. I'm there for the paycheck at the end. I'm not there for the politics. I'm not there to be liked. I'm there to do a job. And for me, I'm there to do a job as best as I possibly can. I'm competitive, so I want to beat the daylights out of everybody else. I want to be the best I can be. I want to compete. If I am competing, which I'm always competing, I want to be the best employee. If you're hiring me, I'm going to give you a reason to keep me. I'm going to be your absolute best employee. But so older workers are more happy at work than younger generation. Maybe it's a generational thing. Maybe it's a cultural generational thing. I don't know. And here's income. This kind of makes sense. And I'm resting again. I know I'm not walking. It's a little bit hard to kind of juggle all this. I'll get used to it. But this one makes sense. The more money you make, the more you like your job. And I can put together a discussion on negotiating compensation. And here's a stat. Almost 92% of people that accept a job never negotiate a salary. We can cover that in another video. But so the more money you make, the more you like your job. That makes sense. And here's one that I guess I didn't get it because I'm not a woman, but women tend to experience higher levels of dissatisfaction with their job compared to men. It's a Gallup poll. It's not my poll. This isn't me discriminating. But a Gallup says that women really dislike their job more than men do. I don't know why. I'm not a woman. Maybe you can help me here in the comments. Maybe you can give me details on really why. You know, and being engaged at work, I said that most people don't feel engaged. 25%, Gallup says 25% of the people feel engaged at work. It's probably a pretty loose statistic because I don't know that many people that feel engaged. And if they are engaged, most of the time it's temporary. It's not full time. It's not a permanent thing. So really, what can be done? What can be done? What can be done about you hating your job? I think it's mindset. I always say control what you can control. And you can't control your boss, but there might be ways to do it. You can't control the company, but there may be a little ways to maneuver it. But control what you can control. And that's your mindset. That's your attitude. And trust me, I've been accused of having a bad attitude, a crappy attitude, a poor attitude, whatever. Don't get me angry. Change your attitude, change your mindset. Like, what do you want out of your job? What are you looking for in your job? What are you trying to accomplish? Is it money? Are you trying to make the most money? Are you trying to get the biggest career? Are you trying to get growth? Like, what's the focus of your job? What are you trying to get out of it? If it's money, work your tail off, get promoted. I come from the old school, believe in working hard. Work your tail off. Try and get promoted. Be the person that they can't get rid of, that they don't want to get rid of. Be indispensable. Be valuable. Remember, companies hire people to create revenue. And I don't care which role you're in, but you have to create revenue for the company. Sometimes it's really not about quitting. I know a couple years ago, there was this big quiet quitting and people are just going to quit. I don't think you should quit your job, first of all, without another one, number one. I just think you need to shift who you're trying to impress. Who are you trying to impress at work? For me, I'm trying to impress my family. I'm trying to make sure I make the most amount of money for my family or for the things I want, whatever that is. Let me just share with you a quick story. As a recruiter, I have people that call me all the time and want to change jobs or looking for a new job or more money or whatever the reasoning is. I had a guy call me and said he hated his boss. He couldn't find a new boss. His story is that he was in an industry that's very niche, very hard to find another job for. He hated his boss, and what I did is gave him some consulting, some 2 cents, my 2 cents, Scott's 2 cents about what to do. Control what you can control, which is yourself. How to focus on, helping his boss be a better manager. And I gave him a few tips. I gave him a little direction. And long story short, he listened to my advice, which doesn't happen frequently. But he listened to my advice and was able to change his career significantly, change his boss, was able to get promoted, and was able to make more money and have a more solid career than he ever thought. He ended up being very happy in his job, promoted, and I don't want to give away everything, but he ended up being the CEO of the company. A big company, not a small company, a big company. And I'm trying not to give many details. And I'm not saying that everybody that listens to me or everybody that does something is going to be the CEO of a company. What I'm saying is control what you can control. Attitude is everything. And I need to learn this too. Sometimes my attitude's terrible. I know my wife says this all the time. My tone is terrible. I need to have a better tone. I need to have better attitude. I need to walk more instead of sitting. I need to lose more weight. I need you to help me. But share with me your thoughts on your job. Do you hate your job? Do you like your job? I've got other topics I want to cover, and I've got more pounds I got to walk off. So thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Drop some notes in the comments, and we'll see you next time.